Hi everyone, this is Anna Finch from Finch Press Publishing. Hope everyone is having a good day so far. So today's video is a book review. Now I will actually be reviewing The Giver by Louis Lowry. Now I'll be reviewing it as a text, as a piece of literature, and to read for enjoyment, as well as a text for studying in the Australian curriculum or in other curriculums as well. So let's get started. Now, The Giver by Louis Lowry is a fairly short text. It's a quick read for the most avid reader. Language-wise, it's easily accessible for lower level students. So kids year 7 to year 9 would definitely be able to read it. Year 7s could read it. There may be some phrases and words that they would need vocabulary building to understand. But overall, junior students can read it. The language is easily accessible. If English is not your first language, you can still read The Giver and understand practically everything that's in there. Now, this, just to give you an overall summary of what the book's about without giving any spoilers, this book is about a character called Jonas. Now, Jonas lives within what's called the community. It's basically a place where there's no war, no hunger, no pain. So basically a perfect place, supposedly. But when he's selected as the receiver of memory, which is the most important job in the community, he starts to discover basically the dark secrets that lie beneath the surface of his perfect world. So what he thought was perfect, he starts to discover the darker side of it. It basically pushes him on a journey to work out, how can he fix this? What is a way he can fix this? The story itself is compelling. It's interesting. It's unique, especially for a dystopian text, which is what a lot of schools study this as. It's interesting. It's a completely different way of writing a dystopian text than most modern ones. Most modern dystopian texts are like the Hunger Games. Their kids are put into categories, or they're chosen to do something. They're made to fight to the death. So, like Maze Runner, Divergent, Hunger Games. They're the ones that come to mind when it comes to dystopia. The Giver, while a dystopian text, and there are obvious elements of dystopia in this, it is written differently to the games, which makes it more interesting for me. I like character-driven stories, and I like seeing emotional journeys in what I read. So this was a lot more interesting for me to read. Now, again, I did read this as a text that I was teaching. I did not buy it for enjoyment. Most of the time when I buy books for enjoyment, it's poetry or short stories. Things I can read and consume within a short period of time. Occasionally books. Sometimes I do buy fantasy books. But now, the cover itself doesn't really capture my attention. So the cover, not a fan of it. There are other covers that are a bit more engaging, but this cover is not the best or the most engaging. However, the story itself is interesting. If the cover was all I saw in a bookshelf, I may not have picked it up. But because it was on a book list and I was reading it in order to teach my students, I actually found myself enjoying it. So it's written in third person. So it's written in third person omniscience, I think. Third person omniscient. It is written from the perspective of one character only, though. So even though it's in third person, you're mainly just following the story of one character. You only see the other characters, what happens to the other characters, through memory or recordings or when Jonas himself is interacting with each other. But otherwise you're following Jonas only. His journey is interesting. Him discovering himself, learning about himself, learning about his community. Why is it like this? What's missing from his life? It's interesting. I enjoyed it. The characters are well developed. You feel for the characters. You see what's going through their minds. Not literally, but you can see from their descriptions what they're feeling. Jonas, when he's confronted with a particular horrific moment through a recording connected to his father, I'm going to try not to give away what the horrific moment is, but if you've watched the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And you can see the horror in the way it's described in the story. You can see what this character feels. You know what he feels. And you're horrified along with him. So you feel what he's feeling and you're horrified. You want something to change. You want the change. You want Jonas to actually change what is happening in his world. And you're basically cheering him on. You are engaged the whole time. The plot is engaging from start to finish. Everything that happens for a reason. No moment in this story is wasted. There is no extra things in there that should have been taken out. Everything that's in there was in there for a purpose. The language was engaging. The language was accessible for lower level readers. So as a piece of literature, as in if you were reading this for your own enjoyment, I do recommend this. The Giver by Louis Lowry is an excellent book. It is very well written. It's engaging from start to finish. The characters' emotional journeys pull at the heartstrings. As a piece of literature for enjoyment, I do recommend this. On the other side, when you're looking at as a text for teaching English in the English curriculum, whether it's as a dystopian text or as a text response, so analysing it as a text response or comparison, I still recommend it. The elements of dystopia are easily identifiable in this. The resources regarding dystopia, a lot of people refer to this or the Hunger Games, but this as well. There are issues in this that are relevant today. There are things in here that they talk about that are relevant to today's world, and they can connect to that. Kids can connect to it. There are some things that are problematic, particularly the fact that these kids are 12, 13. The characters are 12, 13, most of them. And there are some things that are implied that are horrific. But they still happen in the real life world. So it's still relevant. There are issues in here that are relevant to the real world and people need to talk about. So now this book is about 30 years old, I believe. It's about 30 years old. But as a text for teaching English for the Australian curriculum, whether it's as a dystopian text and you're analysing it as a dystopian text, or if you're analysing it as a text response, which is mainly characters, themes, or even a comparison, this, I highly recommend it for schools. One, it's easily accessible. So if you've got students in a classroom with low levels, they can read this and it's easily accessible. It's fairly short, fairly quick. There are a number of videos where they read the chapters aloud on YouTube that you can listen to, especially if the kids don't have a lot of strong reading levels. There is a movie that has similar, it's similar enough to the book that students can watch and get an understanding of the actual story. There are a lot of resources about the themes, about the characters, about symbols, about anything. So there are a lot of resources available because this is 30 years old and it has been used multiple times in multiple schools in multiple years as a text for analysing. So the resources are there. If you need to teach it, the resources are there. But teaching it is a very interesting story. The students will get engaged with it and they will actually ask, why is that happening? Why did they let this happen? They will start questioning things, which is good. You want them to question things. You want them to look deeper into the story and see the problems and actually try and work out, why is it like this? Where did they get the idea from? So some of the issues that I found in this, now again, it's about 30, 40 years old, can be based on the time it was written, so the author context. Some of these issues I have found in The Handmaid's Tale, but this is more suitable for younger readers rather than The Handmaid's Tale, which is on, I think, year 11 or year 12 curriculum in some schools. So, as a teacher, text, like as a book for teaching the Australian curriculum, I do recommend it. I would give it 9 out of 10. Definitely 9 out of 10. And 9 out of 10 for reading experience. It's been interesting. Alright, well that's all I've got for this video. If you liked it, press the like button down below. If you want to be notified of when I upload videos, hit the subscribe button. I try to upload at least twice a week. If you have any questions, whether it's to do with the text or whether it's to do with the Australian curriculum, if you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I look forward to reading them. See you next time.